Luke Skywalker, Captain America, Superman, Indiana Jones, Captain Kirk are just some of the people generally mentioned in the conversation for the best movie heroes of all time. And rightfully so. Those characters in many ways embody what it means to be a hero. I firmly believe that Ethan Hunt of the Mission Impossible franchise belongs in that conversation. He has every single trait that a great hero should have: righteousness, empathy, intelligence, risk-taking, physical prowess, and always does what he believes is right, but he is also complex and flawed. He is not perfect and hasn't always been the righteous hero he is now. He has evolved tremendously across the 8 films in the franchise. Let's dive in. Spoilers for every movie in the franchise, including The Final Reckoning. Ethan was born in Madison, Wisconsin, which I think is pretty awesome because that's where I'm from. He was a highly decorated soldier in the Army and rose through the ranks very quickly. Considering how disciplined and intelligent he is, he was a natural and quickly picked up on many skills and tactics that he took with him into his life as an IMF agent. Ethan is a very quick learner and eager to do some good in the world. Parts of his backstory are a little fuzzy, including the part where his possible romantic interest, Marie, was killed by Gabriel and Ethan was faced with the choice: go to prison or work for the IMF. Was Ethan framed for killing her? Was he involved in some other criminal activity? What happened between his military service and that? Unfortunately, The Final Reckoning did not clear any of that up. When we first see Ethan in 1996, he's a cocky young guy who believes he can do no wrong, essentially a typical 80s, 90s Tom Cruise character, but he's also extremely observant, noticing when certain things may be off or how to adapt to situations that may not have gone exactly as expected. His entire team getting killed was a huge kick in the nuts, not only because he genuinely cared about those people, but he became an outcast and had no home, no governmental support whatsoever, a trend we see many times throughout this franchise, but he is able to wiggle his way out of it and deduce that Jim Phelps was ultimately behind the betrayal, which really hurt Ethan because, despite not showing us much of it, he had a real connection and friendship with Jim, but when it came to it, Ethan put that aside because Jim needed to be stopped. Ethan has a tendency to form attachments, even sometimes romantic ones, such as Naya, Julia, Ilsa, and possibly Grace, but platonic ones as well, such as Benji, Luther, and his former protege Lindsay Ferris. Something he should know is a bad idea in his line of work. They can be used against him and get in the way of the mission. He is told this many times by his friends. For what Ethan does, many lives should matter more than one.
And none of our lives can matter more than this mission.
But he is not willing to accept that. We see this when he risks everything to save Naya in 2, then again to save Julia in 3, fetching a dangerous device, not even fully knowing what it was. We finally find out in The Final Reckoning that the rabbit's foot was indeed the entity, so the third movie had even more consequences than we originally thought. Not just for his personal life, but for the sake of the world as well, and indirectly led to the deaths of Ilsa and Luther. Every single life matters to Ethan, and he will do anything for his friends. But he can't save everyone, and we see the devastation in his eyes when he's unable to do so. The deaths of his entire team in the first movie, then Lindsay Ferris, Hunley, Ilsa, and Luther, all hit the audience extra hard because of his reaction to it. We barely knew his team in the first movie, but we saw the genuine sorrow on his face and we felt for him. But it's not just people he knows, it's everyone. We live and die in the shadows for those we hold close and for those we never meet. One of my favorite lines in the entire franchise is when Ethan says to Grace in Dead Reckoning that her life will always mean more to him than his own. She says, "You don't even know me," to which he replies, "What difference does that make?" And if that is not a perfect summary of what kind of guy Ethan is, I don't know what is. His refusal to sacrifice people for the sake of the mission is one of the common criticisms his superiors will levy at him, but some say it's his greatest strength. His empathy and compassion is oftentimes what leads to success. The Final Reckoning, for example, is by no means a perfect movie, but it really puts the difference between Ethan's moral philosophy and that of almost everyone else in an important government position on full display. The US government was willing to nuke multiple big cities, including one of their own, to achieve what they thought was the greater good, instead of giving Ethan the chance to try to save everyone, which of course he does. President Erica Sloan really being the only exception, played by the absolute powerhouse that is Angela Bassett. She knows Ethan better than everyone in her circle and lends some trust to him. This happens in almost every movie. Ethan uses his wits, quick thinking, and unwillingness to make sacrifices besides himself to save the country or the world. Caring too much actually works. Trusting your gut actually works. Listening to your emotions works. Trusting someone who cares and knows what they are doing works. Not only is that Ethan's character to a T, but it's also a great message for these movies to have. Despite his empathetic nature and tendency to let his emotions get the best of him, Ethan is also extremely analytical and always manages to find a way to navigate seemingly impossible situations. Whether it's using masks to extract information from people, having Julia kill him and then bring him back to life, coming up with a plan to orchestrate 2 different meetings that each side will believe is the same one, luring Lane into a trap, convincing everyone he's John Lark, driving a motorcycle off of a cliff to get onto a moving train, or devising a plan to contain the entity. Ethan is able to figure out how to resolve these very difficult situations, even when being under extreme duress or time constraints. It seems like the line, "I'll figure it out," is dropped by him in every single movie. We, as the audience, always ask ourselves how, and he always finds a way. That's the fun of it. Not if Ethan will figure a way out, but how. Despite this, there are villains, such as Owen Davian and Solomon Lane, who are able to go toe-to-toe with Ethan and even outsmart him at times. Davian tricks Ethan into thinking he was going to kill Julia, and convinced him to retrieve the rabbit's foot, which, as I alluded to, had massive ramifications for the entire world. Lane tricks Ethan into trapping himself in the enclosed room in the library and getting gassed, then puts the bomb on Benji, knowing how far Ethan will go for his friends. Lane is the only villain in the franchise that follows Ethan into subsequent movies, both literally and in his mind, aside from Gabriel, which is a different conversation. That's how you know he was a real threat. Watching Ethan come out on top in the end is always fun, but it's extra compelling when it's against someone who is more than a match for him and has more weight to it. A great hero is only as good as his villains, and he has come up against some fantastic baddies. Let's talk a little bit more about his relationships. As mentioned, despite the limited screen time, Ethan had a genuine connection to his team in the first one, and was heartbroken when most of his team died and when he realized Phelps betrayed him. He had a genuine connection to Naya in the second one, but the third movie is when we really start diving into Ethan as a person and his relationships. He found the love of his life in Julia, played by the wonderful Michelle Monaghan. She was the love of his life, and he was ready to leave the life as a spy because of her, but continued to get drawn back in, and in turn, getting her into trouble. This was a huge revelation for him. His desire to save the world will always outweigh his desire to have a regular life, which means he will never truly be able to have a real romantic relationship or marriage. As long as he is an IMF agent, this person would never be safe and will continue to be used against him. Because of this, Ethan had to separate from Julia and fake her death. It was the only way. We do get some nice closure with her in Fallout as well, kind of saying their proper goodbyes to each other, acknowledging that they still very much love and care about each other, but also acknowledging that it is best for both of them that they go their separate ways. Ilsa Faust is also a very interesting one. She is the only other person Ethan might have had a chance to end up with. They were in the same line of work, and she was one of the few people that truly understood him. but given his past experience with Julia, Ethan knew it probably could never truly work and tried so hard to get Ilsa out of the game, but like him, she couldn't stay away, and that ultimately led to her death. I know people have thoughts about that. That's a topic for another video, but it would have been very interesting to see how the relationship could have turned out had she not been killed off. Their chemistry, both between the characters and just naturally between Tom Cruise and Rebecca Ferguson, was off the charts, and Ilsa was one of the more interesting characters in the entire franchise. Not just in relation to her relationship with Ethan, but as a character overall. Benji and Luther are essentially Ethan's day ones. Technically, you don't see Benji until the third one, but he feels like he's been around the entire time. And those three have such a great dynamic that feels so organic and has grown throughout the years. They have a unique and interesting chemistry and friendship amongst the three of them together, but also separately with each pair. They are Ethan's best friends. They care about each other, protect each other, make sacrifices for each other, help each other learn and grow, and have fantastic banter that makes for some much needed levity within the crazy situations that they always find themselves in. And each of these characters brings something to the table. They all have something important to bring in every movie, whether it is technologically or emotionally. Their long-standing relationship is what made Luther's death so devastating. Grace felt more like a mentorship to me, a lost soul that Ethan could take under his wing, maybe as a way of making up for what happened to his previous protege, Lindsay, as he felt he failed to protect her. Grace was not a bad person. She just was dealt a tough hand in her life. Ethan understands and relates to that and allows her to become the person she always truly was deep down. I like that there's clearly some chemistry there as well between Tom and Haley, but they never take it to the romantic level, though they did trick us a little bit with the editing and the final reckoning. I get the complaints people have about Grace replacing Ilsa, but I think she's a totally different character and brings something totally different to the table, and her relationship with Ethan is different. Ethan has a tendency to forgive people that he sees potential in. He saves Paris's life, and she joins forces with him because of it. His empathy and humanity can actually bring people over to his side, a strength in his philosophy and flaw in his opponents that they would never have even thought of. He gives people chances and is just so successful and genuine in what he does that despite his methods, people can't help but give him credit. And of course, I have to give a massive shout out to the man himself, Tom Cruise, for putting his body and life on the line to do all of these crazy stunts for the sake of our entertainment. Mission Impossible would not be Mission Impossible without these stunts, and the fact that they are real, he is actually doing all of this stuff, no trickery, no CGI, makes these films and these sequences so much more immersive. Ethan is a crazy guy, willing to do anything, including make the ultimate sacrifice to save the world, but only because Tom Cruise himself is a crazy guy, willing to do anything to show us Ethan doing these things. He is the last true movie star, and if The Final Reckoning was his last time doing all of this crazy stuff, it would be the sad end of an era, but I would completely understand because he's been doing it for so long and is well into his 60s. We, as moviegoers, will forever thank him for that. In conclusion, there is no one like Ethan Hunt. He is highly skilled, highly motivated, highly perceptive, genuinely cares about every single person on the planet, whether he knows them or not, and is willing to go to lengths that no one else will to protect those lives. He can think and analyze his way out of any situation, yet cares more about people than anyone. The only sacrifice he's willing to make is himself. His compassion is oftentimes called his greatest weakness, but it is also his greatest strength. It can get in the way of missions, but it's also what leads to him ultimately accomplishing those missions and saving the world. Ethan has grown so much throughout the 8 movies, realizing he wants to have long-term love, but will probably never be able to have it. And that's a sacrifice he is willing to make to protect those that can't protect themselves. He has meaningful and compassionate relationships and loves his friends, but loves people he doesn't know just as much and will extend a helping hand to those in need. Ethan does what he believes is right, regardless of what his orders say or what the bureaucrats want. He can be criticized, he can be ridiculed, he can be disavowed, but he cannot be stopped. He is everything not just an action hero should be, but an altruistic character in general. Ethan is pure good, but not perfect. He makes mistakes, and that's what makes him human. He is the hero we as movie fans need and deserve, and if this is truly the end, and I'm inclined to believe it's probably not, what a ride it has been. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Likes are so important. Drop a comment on your thoughts on Ethan Hunt as a character, and what other characters would you like me to analyze in the future? I have a very long list going, but I'm always open to more suggestions. Check out my Patreon for further benefits, and stay tuned for some more fun content. I will see you soon.